The battle for New Hanyang lasted exactly 17 minutes. It wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of why humanity had once been the galaxy's greatest protectors. The Eternal Vigil moved through space like a dancer, its massive bulk somehow graceful as it approached the alien fleet. Vexithari ordered his ships to attack with everything they had. But their weapons seemed to phase through the human vessel like it existed in a different dimension. "Target their engines," Taemin commanded from the bridge. "Disable their life support systems but leave emergency power. I want them helpless, not dead." The ship's weapons obeyed with surgical precision. Beams of energy that could have cracked planets instead carefully cut through specific systems on each alien vessel. Within minutes, the entire hegemony fleet was drifting powerless in space. "Sir," Dawu reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 18 ships. The others are still trying to figure out what happened to their weapons." Sujin looked up from her station. "I'm detecting similar awakenings across the galaxy. 12 more ships have activated. Humans on other worlds are remembering who they are." The change wasn't limited to technology. As word spread about the return of the Terran Star Empire, something shifted in the galactic consciousness. Species that had been oppressed by the hegemony found new courage. Resistance movements that had been hiding in shadow stepped into the light. On the planet below, General Mordek stood in the colony square, watching his soldiers' weapons refuse to function. Around him, human colonists were emerging from hiding, their eyes bright with hope for the first time in months. "This isn't possible," Mordek muttered. "The humans are primitive. We studied their history. They barely developed spaceflight." An elderly human woman approached him. She had been a teacher before the invasion. Someone Mordek had dismissed as harmless. Now she looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. "You studied the history we chose to remember," she said quietly. "But we are older than you know. We have been your guardians for longer than your species has had written language." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Humans who had seemed beaten and broken suddenly stood straighter, spoke with new authority, and began revealing knowledge they had supposedly never possessed. Ambassador Kilnara's ship approached the Eternal Vigil cautiously. Her people, the Clixon, had been among humanity's closest allies in the ancient days. They had kept careful records of the old empire, waiting for this moment. "Permission to come aboard?" she requested. "Granted," Taemin replied. "It's time for old friends to meet again." The insectoid diplomat species had changed little over the millennia. As she walked onto the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, her compound eyes reflected memories passed down through genetic coding. "My ancestors served with yours on the dimensional barriers," she said, her voice musical with harmonics that the ship's translator couldn't quite capture. "We never forgot what you sacrificed to save us all." She brought data crystals containing records of other species who had remained loyal to humanity's memory. The Vorthak philosophers who had preserved human philosophy, the Nethys Collective who had maintained star charts showing the locations of hidden Terran ships. Even some humans had passed down stories as myths and legends, keeping the truth alive in disguised form. "How many species remembered?" Sujin asked. "More than the hegemony ever imagined," Kilnara replied. "Your return has been our secret hope for 3,000 years." Overlord Vexithari demanded to speak with Taemin directly. The communication came through as a desperate plea disguised as an order. "This is impossible," the reptilian commander insisted when Taemin appeared on his screen. "We have records. Humans developed space travel less than 1,000 years ago. You have no empire, no ancient technology. You have records of what we wanted you to know," Taemin replied calmly. "We erased our own history to protect the galaxy from our mistakes. But we kept guardians hidden, waiting for the day when the galaxy would need protectors again." "Protectors? We are the ones who brought order to the galaxy. You brought conquest. You brought oppression. You forgot the difference between strength and wisdom." Taemin gestured, and the screen showed images from across the galaxy. Hegemony forces retreating as more Terran ships awakened, resistance movements gaining ground, oppressed species finding their voices. "Your expansion has weakened the barriers between dimensions," Taemin continued. "The same barriers we died to create. Dark things are stirring in the spaces between realities, drawn by the chaos you've created." Vexithari's scales paled as he realized the implications. "The Void Dwellers, but those are just legends. Legends we created to help you forget the truth. But now you'll need to remember, Because they're coming back. The conversation was interrupted by alarms throughout both fleets. Space itself seemed to ripple near the edge of the star system. Something was trying to break through from outside normal reality. It begins, the Eternal Vigil's guardian announced. Your wars have created enough dimensional instability for them to find a way through. The thing that emerged from the rift defied description. It was shadow made solid, hunger given form, chaos that fed on the collapse of ordered matter. Just looking at it through the ship's sensors made crew members feel sick. Battle stations, Taman ordered. This is what we were really awakened to fight. The hegemony fleet, despite being disabled, turned their sensors toward the dimensional intruder. For the first time, they saw what humanity had been protecting them from. My gods, Vexthari whispered. How do you fight something like that? Very carefully, Taman replied. And with weapons you've never imagined. The Eternal Vigil's true weapons activated, not energy beams or kinetic projectiles, but forces that could reach into the fundamental structure of reality itself. The ship fired bolts of pure order at the creature, attacks that restored stability to the space around it. We need help, Taman announced on all frequencies. Every ship, every species, every world that wants to survive needs to remember what we fought for. The response was immediate. Kilnara's ship joined the battle, its weapon systems upgraded with human technology stored for millennia. Other allied species revealed hidden arsenals built with Terran designs. Even some of the hegemony ships managed to restore enough power to add their firepower to the fight. But it was the other awakening Terran ships that made the real difference. As humanity remembered its purpose across the galaxy, ancient vessels rose from their hiding places and joined the battle. Within hours, a new fleet was assembled, not to conquer but to protect. The void creature was powerful, but it was only a scout. The real invasion would come later, when the barriers were even weaker. But this first victory sent a message across dimensions. Humanity was awake again, and the Guardians had returned. As the creature was driven back through its dimensional rift, Taman opened a channel to the entire galaxy. This is the real threat, he announced. Not each other, but the things that wait in the darkness between stars. The Terran Star Empire returns not to rule, but to resume our ancient duty as guardians. What happens now? Vexthari asked. His arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. Now we work together, Taman replied. We rebuild the alliance that once protected this galaxy. We prepare for the real war that's coming, and we remember that strength means nothing without wisdom. Over the following months, the galaxy transformed. The hegemony's oppressive rule crumbled as species after species joined the new alliance. Humans who had been scattered across primitive worlds found themselves remembering skills they had supposedly never learned. Ancient technologies awakened on 100 worlds. Sujin established the new Academy of Dimensional Sciences, teaching both humans and aliens how to fight the threats from outside reality. Dowu became an admiral in the reformed Terran Starfleet, commanding vessels crewed by multiple species working in harmony. The barriers between dimensions were reinforced using techniques developed over millennia of preparation. The galaxy learned to defend itself not through conquest, but through cooperation, and in the southern jungle of New Hanyang, now a monument to the day humanity returned, a small plaque bore a simple inscription. They mocked us as primitive. They forgot that sometimes the greatest strength lies in choosing not to use it. The galaxy was safe again, protected by guardians who remembered that true power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to. Humanity was home. The Eternal Vigil rose from the jungle like a sleeping giant coming awake. Trees that had grown over its hull for centuries fell away as massive engines ignited for the first time in millennia. The ship's armor, which had looked like ordinary metal, began to shift and flow like liquid, repairing damage and optimizing its structure. Taman stood on the bridge, his mind still reeling from the flood of ancient memories. He knew how to operate every system on the ship, how to coordinate attacks across star systems, how to bend space and time to his will. The knowledge felt natural, like remembering a skill he had always possessed. The transformation is remarkable, Sujin said, watching displays that showed the ship's systems coming online. It's not just repairing itself, it's improving itself. The Guardian's holographic form appeared beside them. The ship learns from every moment of operation. Your ancestors built it to adapt and evolve. No two battles will find it the same. Above them, alarms began sounding throughout the alien fleet in orbit. Overlord Vexithari was in his command center when the reports started coming in. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from the southern jungle," his sensor operator reported. "Something big is rising from the surface." "Impossible," Vexithari snarled. "There's nothing in that jungle but plants and animals. The humans have no technology that could generate readings like this." On the main screen, a shape emerged from the green canopy below. At first, it looked like a mountain covered in vegetation. Then the plants fell away, revealing something that made Vexithari's blood turn cold. The ship was enormous, larger than his entire fleet combined. Its hull gleamed with an inner light that seemed to bend space around it. As they watched, weapon ports opened along its sides, revealing technology that made their most advanced systems look like primitive tools. "Get me General Mordek," Vexithari ordered. "Tell him to prepare all ground forces for immediate deployment." On the surface of New Hanyang, General Mordek received the order while standing over a group of captured human resistance fighters. Commander Kim Do-woo knelt in chains before him, bloodied but unbroken. "It seems your friends have found something interesting in the jungle," Mordek told Do-woo. "No matter. We will destroy this new toy of yours and then execute every human on this planet as an example." Do-woo looked up at the sky, where the massive ship was now clearly visible even in daylight. He smiled despite his injuries. "General, I think you're about to learn something important about humans." "And what is that?" "We're really good at holding grudges." Aboard the Eternal Vigil, Taemin felt the ship's consciousness merge with his own. He could sense every system, every weapon, every defensive shield. More importantly, he could feel the ship's purpose, not to conquer, but to protect. "Sujin, can you reach the resistance fighters down there?" She worked at a communication station that seemed to respond to her thoughts. "I'm picking up Do-woo's signal. He's alive but captured. They're holding him and about 50 others in the main colony square. And the alien fleet. 47 ships of various classes. Their technology is advanced, but compared to this ship..." She shook her head in amazement. "It's like comparing a torch to a star." The first alien attack came without warning. Energy beams that could cut through mountains struck the Eternal Vigil's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed harmlessly by barriers that existed in multiple dimensions. Taemin felt the attacks like gentle rain on his skin. "Their weapons can't even scratch us. But we're not here to destroy them. We're here to teach them." "Teach them what?" Sujin asked. "That power without wisdom is the path to destruction." The Eternal Vigil's response was surgical in its precision. Beams of coherent energy reached out to touch each alien ship, but instead of destroying them, the beams simply shut down their weapons and engines. One by one, the mighty fleet was reduced to helpless metal floating in space. "Impossible." Vexithari roared as his flagship's systems failed around him. "No ship has that kind of range and accuracy." On the planet below, General Mordek watched his own forces' weapons power down simultaneously. Tanks, aircraft, and personal weapons simply stopped working. His soldiers looked around in confusion as their technology abandoned them. "How are they doing this?" one of his officers asked. Mordek had no answer. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen technology that could selectively disable specific systems without causing any other damage. Taemin opened a communication channel that reached every alien device in the system. His voice spoke in perfect harmony with the ship's consciousness, carrying the authority of an ancient empire. "I am Captain Lee Taemin of the Terran Star Empire. You have made a serious mistake." The words sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. The Terran Star Empire was legend, a myth told in whispered stories. "It couldn't be real. You called us primitive," Taemin continued. "You mocked our technology, our culture, our right to exist. You forgot that sometimes civilizations choose to step back from power." Images began broadcasting throughout the galaxy, recordings from the ship's memory banks showing the ancient Terran fleets in all their glory. Humans commanding vessels that dwarfed entire star systems. Human warriors sealing dimensional rifts with their bare hands. "We ruled the stars once," Taemin's voice reached every world in the galaxy. "We gave up that rule to save you from threats you couldn't even imagine. We chose to forget our power so that we could never abuse it." Sujin watched as communication channels across the galaxy exploded with activity. Species that had been subjugated by the hegemony were learning the truth about humanity's past. Resistance movements on 100 worlds were suddenly finding new hope. "But you have reminded us who we are," Taemin continued. Your cruelty has awakened what we hoped could sleep forever. And now you will learn why your ancestors once begged for our protection. The displays showed other ships beginning to awaken across the galaxy. On a dozen worlds, ancient vessels burst from their hiding places as humans touched consciousness interfaces and remembered their heritage. Ambassador Kilnara, the insectoid diplomat who had watched Taemin's humiliation in the colony square, sent an encrypted message to the Eternal Vigil. Captain Taemin, my people have waited generations for this moment. We preserved records of the old alliance, hoping that Terra's children would return. How can we help? Similar messages poured in from across the galaxy. Species that the hegemony thought were conquered began revealing hidden arsenals, preserved human technology, and detailed records of the Terran Star Empire's true history. Vexthari realized with growing horror that his entire civilization was built on a lie. They hadn't conquered primitive humans. They had been ruling only because the humans had let them. General Mordek, he called desperately, execute the prisoners immediately. Maybe we can still... His transmission was cut off as the Eternal Vigil's tractor beams reached down to the planet's surface. With impossible precision, the ship lifted the captured resistance fighters away from their guards and brought them safely aboard. Daewoo found himself standing on the bridge of a ship that existed beyond his wildest dreams, facing his former captain who now carried the knowledge of an ancient empire. Captain, Daewoo said simply, orders. Taemin smiled. We're going to do what our ancestors did, Commander. We're going to protect the galaxy whether it wants our protection or not. The Eternal Vigil turned toward the alien fleet, its weapons powering up. But these weren't weapons of destruction. They were tools of transformation, designed to change the hearts and minds of those who refused to learn. Sujin, Taemin said, send a message to Earth. Tell them the exile is over. Tell them it's time to come home. As the ship prepared for the battle that would reshape the galaxy, Taemin felt the weight of destiny settling around him. The humans had slept for millennia, but they were awake now, and the galaxy would never be the same. The metallic wall rose from the jungle floor like a mountain made of silver. Vines and moss covered most of its surface, but where Sujin had cleared away the plants, the metal underneath looked brand new. It didn't have a single scratch or rust mark despite being buried for thousands of years. This is impossible, Taemin whispered, running his hand along the smooth surface. Metal doesn't stay this perfect for so long. Sujin's scanner was making noises she had never heard before. The device seemed confused by what it was detecting. The energy readings are off the charts. And look at the size of this thing. They had been walking along the buried structure for 2 hours and still hadn't found the end of it. The wall curved away into the jungle in both directions. Based on Sujin's calculations, the object was at least 10 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. It's not a building, Taemin realized. It's a ship. The biggest ship I've ever seen. They found an entrance hidden behind a waterfall. The opening was perfectly round and lined with symbols that glowed softly when they approached. Sujin touched one of the symbols and the entrance began to open with a sound like distant thunder. Should we really be doing this? Taemin asked. His military training told him to be careful around unknown technology. If we don't, humanity might not survive the next year, Sujin replied. She was right, and they both knew it. The inside of the ship was even more amazing than the outside. Long corridors stretched away in perfect straight lines. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the metal itself. The air was clean and fresh, as if the ship's life support systems were still working after all these centuries. Their footsteps echoed in the empty hallways. Everything was built on a scale for beings about human size, which Sujin found interesting. Most of the alien species they knew were either much larger or much smaller than humans. The builders were similar to us, she observed, examining the height of doorways and the size of what looked like control panels. They followed the main corridor toward what seemed to be the center of the ship. Along the way, they passed rooms filled with equipment they couldn't identify. Crystalline devices that hummed with energy, machines that projected three-dimensional maps of star systems, weapons that looked like they could punch holes through planets. This technology is centuries ahead of anything the aliens have, Taemin said, maybe thousands of years ahead. The central chamber took their breath away. It was a vast, spherical room with a floating platform in the middle. The walls were covered in symbols and star charts that moved and changed as they watched. At the center of the platform stood a crystal structure that pulsed with blue light. It's beautiful, Sujin whispered. As they approached the platform, The crystal began to glow brighter. When Taemin stepped onto the platform, the entire room came alive. Lights flashed, machines hummed to life, and a voice spoke directly into their minds. "Welcome, children of Terra." The voice was warm and somehow familiar, like a parent greeting a long-lost child. It spoke in perfect Korean, then English, then languages they didn't recognize before settling back on Korean. "You understand us?" Sujin asked. "I understand, all children of Terra. I have been waiting for you to return." The crystal structure projected a holographic figure, humanoid but taller and more elegant than a normal person. The figure wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. "I am the guardian of this vessel, the eternal vigil. I was built by your ancestors to wait for the day when Terra's children would need our help again." Taemin felt dizzy. "Our ancestors? But humans only reached space a few hundred years ago. We've never built anything like this." The holographic figure smiled sadly. "Your people chose to forget. It was necessary but painful. Let me show you the truth." The chamber around them dissolved, replaced by visions that felt more real than reality. They saw vast fleets of ships like the Eternal Vigil, crewed by humans who commanded technology that bent the laws of physics. They saw human warriors fighting battles among the stars against enemies that came from dark spaces between dimensions. Long ago, your people were the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever known. The Terran Star Empire protected countless worlds from threats that most species could not even imagine. You commanded fleets that could destroy solar systems or create new ones. The vision showed humans working alongside aliens, but as equals, not as conquered peoples. The same species that now mocked humanity as primitive had once begged for human protection. "What happened to us?" Taemin asked. "You won a war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. The enemy came from spaces between realities, beings that fed on the collapse of ordered time and space. To defeat them, your people had to make a terrible choice." The visions showed a final battle that raged across multiple dimensions. Human ships disappeared into cracks in reality itself, sealing breaches between worlds at the cost of their own existence. The victory required your people to abandon their technology and scatter to primitive worlds. You chose to forget your past, so that you could never again be tempted to open the barriers between dimensions. It was the ultimate sacrifice, giving up an empire to save the galaxy. Sujin was crying. "We were protectors. We were heroes, and we gave it all up. But you did not give up everything," the Guardian continued. "Ships like this one were hidden on worlds throughout the galaxy, waiting for the day when Terra's children would need them again. That day has come." The visions changed to show the current galaxy. The alien species that now ruled had grown aggressive and careless. Their expansion was weakening the barriers between dimensions. Dark things were beginning to stir in the spaces between realities. The children of your former allies have forgotten the lessons you taught them. They believe strength comes from conquest rather than protection. Their wars and expansion are creating cracks in the dimensional barriers you died to seal. Taemin understood now. The galactic hegemony isn't just oppressing other species. They're endangering the entire galaxy. Yes, and only Terra's children remember how to fight the darkness between worlds. Your genetic memory carries the knowledge, locked away until you proved worthy to receive it. The Guardian gestured toward the crystal structure. "Touch the memory core, child of Terra. Remember who you are." Taemin hesitated. "What if I'm not ready? What if I can't handle the knowledge?" You knelt in the mud before your enemies and refused to break. You walked into a deadly jungle to protect your people. You have already proven your worth. When Taemin placed his hand on the crystal, his mind exploded with information. Battle tactics that could coordinate fleets across light years. Engineering knowledge that could build ships from pure energy. Weapons that could cut through the fabric of space itself. But more than knowledge, he felt the weight of responsibility. The humans who had built this ship hadn't been conquerors. They had been guardians, protectors who put the safety of all life above their own glory. "The other ships," Sujin said, understanding flooding her face. "There are more ships like this one hidden throughout the galaxy." "Dozens of them," the Guardian confirmed, waiting for Terra's children to reclaim their birthright. "But remember, this power comes with the same responsibility your ancestors accepted. You are not meant to rule the galaxy. You are meant to protect it." The ship around them began to change. Systems that had slept for millennia came online. The Eternal Vigil was awakening, preparing for war. "The aliens in orbit above this world," Taemin said. They're about to learn that they made a mistake. They are about to learn, the Guardian agreed, that mocking Terra's children is the most dangerous thing any species can do. As the ship prepared to rise from its jungle grave, Taman felt the weight of his ancestors' legacy settling on his shoulders. Humanity hadn't been conquered by superior beings. They had been sleeping, waiting for the galaxy to need them again. The wait was over. 3 weeks in the jungle had changed Lee Taman into something he barely recognized. His face was covered in cuts from thorny vines. His uniform hung in tatters patched with mud and plant fibers. His stomach cramped with hunger and his throat felt like sandpaper. The southern jungle earned its deadly reputation. Every plant seemed designed to kill. Flowers that looked beautiful released poison gas when touched. Vines with pretty colors had thorns that injected paralysis drugs. Even the water in streams could burn through metal if you weren't careful. Taman had learned to move like a ghost through the green maze. He watched where he stepped, tested every branch before grabbing it, and never ate anything without checking it 3 times. His military training had kept him alive, but just barely. The animals were worse than the plants. Giant cats with electric fur hunted at night. Birds with metal beaks could punch holes through armor. Snake-like creatures as thick as trees wrapped around their prey and squeezed until bones broke. Taman had killed several of these monsters, but each fight left him weaker. He was examining a fruit that might be safe to eat when he heard a familiar voice call his name. Taman. Don't move! Dr. Park Soo-jin emerged from behind a cluster of thick trees. She carried a backpack full of supplies and held a scanner in one hand. Her clothes were dirty but in much better condition than his. Soo-jin? Taman couldn't believe his eyes. How did you find me? How did you get past the alien patrols? She smiled and pointed to her scanner. I've been mapping this jungle for 3 years, remember? I know paths that don't show up on their satellites. And I brought food. The meal she shared with him was the best thing Taman had tasted in weeks. Real protein bars, clean water, and medicine for his infected cuts. As they ate, Soo-jin told him what was happening in the outside world. It's bad, she said, her voice quiet and serious. The aliens aren't just occupying our colonies. They're destroying everything that makes us human. Libraries burned. Museums emptied. They're even changing the names of our cities. Taman felt his anger rise. They want to erase us completely. That's not the worst part, Soo-jin continued. I've been monitoring their communications. They're doing this to other species too. Any civilization that resists gets the same treatment. History destroyed, culture eliminated, population scattered. She pulled out a small device that looked like a modified radio. Commander Kim Do-woo has been trying to reach you. He's leading a resistance group in the northern mountains. The radio crackled to life. Do-woo's voice came through clearly despite the static. Captain, are you there? We could really use your help up here. Taman took the radio. I'm here, Commander. What's your situation? We've got maybe 200 fighters and weapons we stole from alien supply convoys. But their technology is so far ahead of ours that we might as well be throwing rocks. We need a miracle. Soo-jin looked at Taman with excitement in her eyes. Maybe we can give them one. I've been studying the ruins deeper in this jungle. There's something here that doesn't belong to any known civilization. She showed him her scanner readings. Energy signatures that pulsed in regular patterns. Metal structures buried under centuries of plant growth. Technology that registered on her instruments but didn't match anything in human or alien databases. The local tribes who lived here before human colonization had stories, Soo-jin explained. They talked about sky warriors who came from the stars long ago, beings who could travel between worlds and fight battles in space. Taman studied the scanner data. The energy readings were definitely artificial, but they were unlike anything he had seen during his military career. You think there's ancient technology buried out there? I think there's more than that, Soo-jin said. Look at these patterns. She showed him aerial photos she had taken over the years. From above, certain areas of the jungle formed geometric shapes. Trees grew in perfect circles. Rivers followed lines that looked too straight to be natural. Rock formations created symbols that reminded Taman of star charts. The whole jungle is arranged, Soo-jin continued, like someone designed it to hide something. Something big. They spent the night in a cave that Soo-jin had prepared as a shelter. She had stocked it with supplies and set up equipment to monitor alien patrols. As they planned their route deeper into the jungle, the radio brought more bad news from Do-woo. Earth is under siege, the commander reported. 3 alien fleets are surrounding our home planet. The government is talking about surrender. Taemin closed his eyes and tried not to think about his family back on Earth. His parents, his sister, all the people he had sworn to protect. The aliens would probably scatter them across different worlds, break up families, destroy communities. There has to be something we can do, he said. Sujin looked at her scanner again. The energy readings were stronger now, as if something was responding to their presence. Maybe there is. Tomorrow we head for the source of these signals. If the old stories are true, if there really were sky warriors who fought among the stars, maybe they left something behind, something that could help us fight back. The next morning, they began their journey deeper into the green hell. Sujin led the way, using her maps and scanner to navigate around the deadliest areas. They moved slowly, carefully, always watching for predators and poisonous plants. As they traveled, Taemin noticed that Sujin was right about the patterns. Trees definitely grew in unnatural arrangements. Rock formations looked too perfect to be accidents of nature. Even the animal paths seemed to follow geometric designs. It's like a massive puzzle, Sujin said as they stopped to rest. The whole jungle is a code hiding something underneath. That afternoon they found the first sign that they were on the right track. A stone pillar covered in symbols that Sujin had seen at other ruins across the galaxy. The symbols were carved deep into the rock and filled with a metal that still gleamed despite centuries of exposure to the elements. These markings, Sujin said, running her fingers over the symbols. I've found fragments like this on 12 different worlds, always in places that show signs of advanced technology, always in areas that other species avoid. Her scanner was going crazy now, detecting energy sources that were definitely not natural. Something large and metallic was buried not far ahead. Whatever's down there, Taemin said, checking his makeshift weapons. I hope it's friendly. Sujin smiled, but her eyes showed worry. The old stories say the Sky Warriors disappeared suddenly. No one knows why they left or where they went. But maybe, just maybe, they left us a way to fight back. As the twin suns began to set, they made camp near the stone pillar. Tomorrow they would find out what secrets the ancient Sky Warriors had hidden in this green hell. Taemin lay awake that night, listening to the sounds of the jungle. Somewhere in the darkness, predators hunted and plants grew according to patterns laid down by a vanished civilization. And somewhere ahead, technology beyond human understanding waited to be discovered. He thought about the aliens who had humiliated him, who had called humans primitive and worthless. Maybe they were about to learn that they didn't know everything about the galaxy's history. Maybe they were about to discover that underestimating humans was a very dangerous mistake. The mud felt cold against Lee Taemin's knees. He stared at the ground, watching dirty water soak through his torn uniform. Around him, dozens of alien voices made sounds that his translator turned into laughter. They were all laughing at him. The town square of New Hanyang Colony buzzed with excitement. Aliens from across the galaxy had come to watch this moment. Tall reptile creatures with purple scales stood next to bug-like beings with too many eyes. Floating gas clouds that somehow had voices drifted above the crowd. They had all come to see the human get punished. Look at this pathetic creature, said Overlord Vexthari. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The large reptile alien stood on a platform above everyone else. His purple scales caught the light from the two suns overhead. This thing dared to fight against us. More laughter filled the air. The sound made Taemin's teeth hurt. He had been kneeling here for 2 hours now. His back ached and his legs were numb, but he would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him fall over. Tell me, human, Vexathari continued. What made you think your tiny ships could stop our fleet? Did you really believe your primitive weapons could hurt us? Taemin said nothing. He remembered the battle above this planet 6 months ago. His small group of human ships had tried to protect the colony. The alien fleet had destroyed them in minutes. His flagship had been cut in half by a single beam of energy. Most of his crew died instantly. Only he survived, trapped in an escape pod until the aliens found him. Your technology is centuries behind ours, said another alien. This one looked like a giant insect with clicking jaws. Your computers are like toys. Your weapons are sticks and stones. And your tactics, added a third alien. This one made of swirling purple gas, are so simple that our war computers predicted every move you would make. The crowd laughed again. Taemin felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his mouth shut. Getting angry would only make them happier. In the crowd, Dr. Park Soo-jin watched with tears in her eyes. The aliens had taken away all her research equipment when they captured the colony. She had been studying the old ruins in the jungle for 3 years. The aliens said her work was worthless. They said humans had no real history worth studying. This specimen, Vexithari pointed at Taemin with one clawed finger, commanded the human defense fleet. He was their best warrior. Look at him now. The alien overlord walked down from his platform. His heavy footsteps made the ground shake. He stopped right in front of Taemin and leaned down. His breath smelled like rotting meat. Your species is a mistake, Vexithari whispered. You are too weak to rule worlds, too stupid to build real technology, too primitive to understand the galaxy. Why should we let you live? Taemin finally looked up. His dark eyes met the alien's yellow ones. Because killing us won't make you any stronger, he said quietly. The crowd went silent for a moment. Then the laughter came back louder than before. Strong? Vexithari roared. You think this is about strength? This is about the natural order. Advanced species rule over primitive ones. That is how the galaxy works. That is how it has always worked. The overlord stood up and spread his arms wide. Look around you, human. Every species here has mastered space travel, energy weapons, and faster-than-light communication. What have humans achieved? You barely left your home planet before we found you. You fight with chemical explosives and metal bullets. You are children playing with dangerous toys. Sujin pushed through the crowd trying to get closer. An alien guard, one of the bug-like creatures, blocked her path with a weapon that hummed with energy. Your friend wants to save you, Vexithari noticed Sujin, the female who digs in the dirt looking for rocks and old bones. She thinks the past matters. But there is no glory in your past, human. No great empire. No mighty wars. Just a short, sad story of a species that never learned to grow up. The tribunal of alien judges whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like music, hissing, and static. Finally, one of them spoke. We have decided your punishment, the judge announced. Its voice came from a creature that looked like a walking tree with too many arms. You will be sent into the southern jungle alone, with no supplies except the clothes you wear. The crowd cheered. The southern jungle was known to be deadly. Poisonous plants grew everywhere. Dangerous animals hunted anything that moved. Acid rain fell from the sky during storm season. Few people who went in ever came back out. The jungle will teach you humility, Vexithari said with satisfaction. If you somehow survive, perhaps you will understand your place in the galaxy. You are not warriors. You are not explorers. You are barely more than animals yourselves. 2 alien guards grabbed Taemin's arms and pulled him to his feet. His legs almost gave out after kneeling for so long. They dragged him toward a transport vehicle that would take him to the jungle's edge. As they passed Sujin, Taemin caught her eye for just a moment. She saw something there that surprised her. Not defeat, not fear, but a quiet determination that reminded her why she had fallen in love with him years ago, before the war started. Remember what we talked about, he whispered as the guards pulled him past her. The old sites, the patterns in the ruins. Keep looking. The guards shoved him into the transport. As it lifted off the ground and flew toward the green hell of the southern jungle, the crowd began to break up. The aliens talked excitedly about the entertainment they had just enjoyed. Some placed bets on how long the human would survive. Vexithari watched the transport disappear into the distance. He felt satisfied. Another primitive species had learned its place. The galaxy would continue as it should, with the strong ruling over the weak. He had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake of his very long life. Sujin stood alone in the empty square as the twin suns began to set. She touched the small device hidden in her pocket, a scanner she had managed to keep when the aliens took her other equipment. Tomorrow she would find a way to follow Taemin into the jungle. She had been studying the old ruins for years. She knew there were secrets buried in that green wilderness, secrets that the aliens had dismissed as worthless. But Sujin remembered the energy readings she had detected deep in the jungle, strange signals that didn't match any known technology. Maybe it was time to find out what the ancient builders had left behind.